I call the honourable member Andrew Little an opportunity to make a contribution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it is an opportunity that I relish and seek to serve the good people of New Plymouth and Taranaki well in. Because I want to start by saying this, Mr. Speaker, there is nothing greater in this country than the National Party capacity for self-delusion. They have come here day after day since last Thursday, spinning a yarn that even they know to be totally untrue. They talk about the state of the economy. They forget that after the last Labor government that had produced 9 surpluses in a row, that had built up the Cullen Fund, that had built up the ACC fund to nearly $11 billion over its time, and that had restored the health of that organisation, and that had delivered the lowest level of unemployment in the OECD. They forget all that. They forget Bill English's own endorsement that said that because of the state of the economy, New Zealand was well poised to face the consequences of the global financial crisis. They forget conveniently that New Zealand had suffered a drought in the period 2007-2008 that had caused its economy to slow down. That apparently it's the Labor Party in New Zealand that controls the weather in this country, and the Labor Party is held responsible for that. The National Party members, all of them who have stood up to speak, know that they have spoken absolute rubbish about the state of the economy that they claim to have inherited in 2008. The truth is that the last Labor government had conducted itself and its economic stewardship with aplomb. The other misleading area that this members of this government keep talking about is justice and the crime rate. Well, that balloon was popped some weeks ago at a symposium organised by and hosted by no less a personage than the Minister of Justice, one of whose important experts from Britain had said that there's nothing that is happening in crime statistics that politicians can take responsibility for, that there were other factors that were driving the lower reported crime rate, not the least of which was the fact that most cars now actually have security systems and have car alarms and all that sort of stuff. But here's the other thing. We know that in this country something else is happening, and that is that the way crimes are managed at the front line is changing. And you talk to any frontline police officer, you talk to any police prosecuting sergeant, you talk to any Crown solicitor, and they will tell you that it isn't too flash, that the pressure is on them. The pressure is on them to reduce the number of charges, to wind back the charges, to prosecute less, to try and get that guilty plea for the more minimal charge. That's what's happening in New Zealand today. And what that means for victims of crime in this country is they are not getting justice, because the people who are inflicting their evil ways upon victims are not being properly called to account. And soon, at some point in the future, because of the measures of this government in the justice sector, it won't be too far away, a person who has a record of criminal offending that is not properly recorded in our crime statistics or in his or her crime record will appear before a judge on a bail application. The judge will have flawed information on which to make a risk assessment, will let the person out, and that person will offend on bail and potentially inflict very serious harm on an unwitting citizen. That's how much this government cares about justice and victims of crime in this country. They don't care at all. They don't care at all. And you only have to look and see what's happening with justice spending in this budget. $40 million less, legal aid slashed, and not just family legal aid, which is what we were told was going to be cut because of the new sort of magic family law system that's going to solve all family disputes in an instant, but actually criminal legal aid being cut back as well. This is not a budget for justice. This is a budget for injustice. I want to talk about jobs, wages and the regions. And I come from I spend my out of Parliament work in a region that is claimed by this government to be loved by it, and a region that it considers to be very important. But this government is doing nothing for the regions. It's doing nothing for Taranaki. Its sole achievement after 6 years of being represented by a National MP in New Plymouth is to expand a 100-metre bridge when so much more is being asked for and demanded by people. The expansion of a 100-metre bridge is all that the people of New Plymouth have to show for after 6 years of being represented by a national MP. And what we see in New Plymouth and Taranaki now is businesses closing, good businesses, jobs going, and these are jobs in heavy engineering, the mainstay of the Taranaki economy for so long. Jobs out of Fitzroy Yachts, jobs out of Fitzroy Engineering, jobs out of Tenex Engineering, jobs out of Pace Engineering. That industry is under severe pressure because this government doesn't care about the regions. It doesn't put money into the regions. It doesn't care about Taranaki's roads. It doesn't care if people in regions like Taranaki are unemployed and lose their jobs. And talking about unemployment and young people, talking about the young unemployed, let's talk about the comments of the MP for New Plymouth in the House just the other night, when he claimed that things were going gangbusters, when he said that things were going well. Well, the reality is that they are not. Taranaki's unemployment is higher than the national average. It's 6.5% in March this year, and jobs are still being lost. You look at what the government is not investing in, that is crying out for investment. Roading is one of them. People might make a bit of a joke about me banging on about State Highway 3 North in this House. It is a crucial arterial road for Taranaki, and it is totally neglected by this government, totally neglected, has nothing to say about it, even less to do about it, and it is crying out for attention. A road on which countless people have died in the years during which this government has been in power, and nothing gets done about the underlying problems. Nothing gets done about the poor paving, the poor roading, the poor alignment, the lack of shoulders, the crumbling cliff faces on the cavernous road, the cavernous areas that the road goes through. This government doesn't care about it. That's an area that needs attention. A government that cared about the regions, cared about regions like Taranaki, wouldn't stand aside and just cheer on what the private sector is doing in the oil and gas industry, important as that is. It would know that it has a responsibility to do things as well, to look after the roading, to look after the port, to look after the other infrastructure in that region, to get alongside those big infrastructure businesses like the port and others, and make sure that the investment is continuing and that people are being kept in good work, that the heavy engineering industry is being supported. It would care about its manufacturing policy and make sure it had a manufacturing policy that meant that complex, sophisticated gear and goods and structures could continue to be manufactured here, rather than shutting down our heavy engineering industry the same way that it's doing the forestry and sending good jobs overseas, which is what it's doing. This government's performance in the regions is atrocious. This government's performance on jobs in the regions is appalling. And that's why this government is running out of time, and why people in the regions like Taranaki have given up and no longer have confidence in it. I want to talk quickly about wages. There is one thing that this government does not talk about. It is guilty about, because it is guilty of, and that is lifting wages in this country. Last year, 46% of wage and salary earners, nearly half of the entire New Zealand workforce, did not get a pay rise at a time of a growing economy. Oh, they are very good at standing up and crowing about 3% economic growth. They are very good at crowing about, the fact there's more hours being worked and earnings have gone up. But ask about what's happening with people's wage rates, whether people are getting a pay increase. They've got nothing to say about it, because they don't actually care. They don't care that in a growing economy, that's the very time that people should be getting pay rises. But nearly half the workforce in New Zealand cannot get a pay rise because our system is busted, it's broken, and people cannot get it. And now we see in regions like Taranaki, not only those who can't get a pay rise don't get it, but now good people, the ones who are getting decent pay rises, are now losing their jobs. This government's record is appalling. This budget has nothing to do for it, has nothing to say about it, and the members opposite this government should hang its head in shame, because its performance is appalling. It has no economic development plan. It has no regional development plan. It does not care about the regions. The regions are suffering, but come September, Mr. Speaker, that will change. Come September, that will change, because the people in the regions know that there are people in this House, on this side of our House, who care about the fortunes of the regions, who care about what happens to jobs and families and good citizens in the regions like Taranaki, and a government that will do something about it and lift the wealth and share the wealth and share the national income and make this a fairer and more just country.
I call the Honourable Minister Christopher Finlayson.
Thank you, sir. I want to begin by paying